This was perhaps the worst year for World War I. Woodrow Wilson was sworn in as 28th President of the United States. Lions Club International is formed in the United States. The year is 1917, and this was the most expensive Packard you could get. Please allow me to introduce you to the 1917 Packard Imperial Limo. But before getting into all of it, I'm Jay. Welcome to What It's Like, the automotive channel that covers cars off the beaten path and consequently being forgotten. We cover the classics, vintage, some exotics. We love the orphan cars. If you're new to the channel, first time checking out, this is our 344th episode, of which 120 of them were orphan cars. And this is way more than just a car channel. This is a car community. If that sounds like a community that you'd like to join, totally dig, subscribe and hit the bell icon next to it to never miss a video. I found this 1917 Packard Imperial Limo at the Greenfield Village. It was part of the Old Car Festival, which is a pre-war car show at the Greenfield Village in Dearborn, Michigan, right next to the Henry Ford. All of the cars are before 1932. Unmodified, and they drive them around in the streets. Not only that, they're in a period correct town. Lots of people dress period correct. So it's almost like going back in time for a weekend, which was really great. I honestly can't say enough good things about that car show, and honestly, it's probably my favorite car show this side of the Mississippi. It's honestly what the car hobby should be about. It should be about sharing your rides and experiences with everybody, and that's what that show is. You can experience those cars for what they were. A lot of people will say that those cars are going away, but that's not true. People are still keeping them. And I saw lots of kids, people younger than me, driving cars older than both of us. For those that may have never heard of the Greenfield Village, this is what it is. Henry Ford, you could think whatever you want of the guy, but he saw that what was happening to stuff, it was just getting destroyed and lost to time. So he decided to save a couple things. The village is almost 100 buildings on 200 acres. Most of the buildings are the actual buildings, like the Wright Brothers bicycle shop. 1917 Packard model lineup. Packard only offered the Twin 6, but it could be had in two flavors, 225 and 235. The two signified second series. The other two numbers were for wheelbase size, but the actual number is 1.5 inches longer on the 225, riding a wheelbase of 126.5 inches, and the 235 riding a wheelbase of 135 inches. Packard offered the Twin 6 in two periods of time, from 1916 to 1923. They took a bit of a break, returned in 1933 through 39. Packard Twin 6 replaced the Packard 6 and was replaced by the Custom Super 8 in 1940. Packard introduced the Twin 6 to stay competitive with the competition in the cylinder wars. Packard competed with Marmon, Pierce Arrow, Rolls-Royce, Cadillac, Lincoln, Franklin, Peerless, among others. Packard is one of the three P's of prestige. The other two are Pierce Arrow and Peerless. Packard offered many different body styles, as well as, you have to remember, this is the era of custom-bodied cars where Packard would sell you the chassis and drivetrain, and you could take it to any coach builder of your choice and have your own car built to set you apart from your neighbor and be different than everyone else. Packard offered three limos for the 235 series. You had the regular limo, then the town car was in the center, which had an open top or a canvas or some sort of material to go over the driver compartment, and at the top was the Imperial Limo. During this period of time, when you bought a limo, you also got the chauffeur with the car. Changes to the 1917 body. It sits 2 inches lower than the 1916 model. Fenders following wheel curve. Warner lens headlamps, also called bubble headlamps. Softer upholstery. Body construction was aluminum over white ash frame. Let's talk specs. It rides a wheelbase of 135 inches. Price. I broke this down into two prices. So you could buy the chassis for $2,765, which would be equivalent to you spending $66,000 $34.03 in the year 2023, or for the Imperial Limo, which was one of the most expensive, if not the most expensive Packard you could get in 1917, $4,915, which is equivalent to you spending $117,380.57 in the year 2023. Total 1917 Packard production was 8,999 units. Before moving on to engine specs, let's take a minute to discuss what the twin six engine was. Just like the name suggests, it's two 6-cylinder engines with one crankshaft. It's important to note, they aren't parallel. The banks of cylinders aren't. It's often called an opposing 12 because if you look at the engine, one bank of cylinders is longer than the other, and vice versa on either side of the block. In other words, if you look at any other engine, like a V8 for instance, and you look at the bank of cylinders, they match on both sides. This engine does not match on both sides. Hence the name opposing 12. Cast iron blocks set at 60-degree angle with aluminum crankcase. Pistons are aluminum alloy. This engine used a full pressurized oil lubrication system, which is huge for 1917. Most engines were splash lubricated. Separate cylinder head and cylinder block castings. Aluminum alloy pistons have 2 compression rings and an oil scraper. Intake and exhaust manifold have been modified from previous year. Horsepower is the same, but it makes the horsepower at a lower RPM figure. 424 cubic inch displacement. Flathead opposing 12, 7 liters. It's good for 88 horsepower at 2600 RPM, up to 241 pound-feet of torque at 1800 RPM, which is an estimate. Bore of 3 inches and a stroke of 5 inches. Has 3 main bearings, Delco distributors, notice that's plural, and it's backed with a 3-speed manual transmission that's non-synchronized. Let's talk chassis. The frame is a channel section pressed steel 6 inches deep. Axles. The front axle is I-beam with roller bearings. Rear beam tubular steel semi-floating. Suspension. Front suspension uses semi-elliptical longitudinal leaf springs. In the rear, it's platform semi-elliptic leaf springs. Steering, worm and nut. Braking. This car uses mechanical brakes, not hydraulic, and the brakes are only on the rear wheels. So let's talk styling. Look at this bumper. Look how it's mounted to the car. Look at these lights. They have like a rosish tint to them. Look at all the textures. My hand for reference, they're pretty big. This car has a crank, but I think it's for looks only. Look at how these fenders are designed. Gander at these wheels. Packard Motor Car Company inside the wheel. Just look at how these fenders come down. Battery box. Catwalk section. I love these louvers. Look at the pinstriping on the louvers. This one also has cowl lights and a different kind of vent. Look at the vent system. There's one on each side. 2-piece windshield. Look at all of the brass. Some mirrors mounted there. Brass handle. The owner was telling me that everything the driver touched was brass. They had a brass shortage in 17 and these are chrome plated. So anything that the passenger touched was chrome plated. Everything that the driver touched was brass. Check out how wide these running boards are. This door leads into here, and that's a place that you need to grease. There's one on each side. Just look how this is all textured. This fender design overhangs just a wee bit, like ever so slight, and it's pretty straight, or flush, I should say. but the body has a bunch of raised areas and some beads everywhere, and it's all pinstriped. This car's a very tall car. I'm 6'2", and it's probably got another 2 foot on me. There is a drip rail here. It stops right there. The drip rail is only over the windows. No drip rail there, but there's a drip rail there. Look at how these windows are designed. All the pinstriping too. How this bead comes around. Also, another interesting thing, there is a key cylinder here, but there isn't a key cylinder for the driver. This car has an onboard air compressor. When the car is running, you could pull this out and put an air hose in and pump up anything you want. Which reminds me, did you ever wonder why cars from this era have multiple spare tires? It's not because of tire construction. You have to remember, cars at this point in time were still in their infancy, and a lot of people couldn't afford cars. A lot of people still used horses, and if you know anything about horses, they like to throw shoes from time to time. Nails on the roads. That's the reason why these cars had as many tires as they did as spares. Check out how these fenders kind of flare this way though. Kind of point in, not drastic, ever so slightly. How this kicks out. Two spare tires on the back. This one only has one brake light, which is super interesting considering the class of car this is. Gas filler is right back there. So check this out too. There's leaf springs here. There is also a transverse spring right here. So just take a look at this door panel. This feels like real leather. There isn't an armrest on the door panel itself, but there is armrests right there and over there. And this is how you raise and lower the windows. Door handle to get out. Here's what over the hood impression looks like. Here's what first person over the hood looks like. And the hood isn't really that long, all things considered. You gotta think, there's a twin 6 in front of you, or V12, and that hood doesn't look very long. Underneath the steering wheel, there's plenty of room between my hand and the steering wheel, but it is rather tight over here because you have the gear selector and the handbrake, clutch, brake, gas pedal, which is this spoon looking thing here. This is a air pump that you have to pump air as you're driving down the road. On to the button switches and knobs. Behind the steering wheel, ignition, key, headlights. The knob adjusts air fuel mixture on the fly. That line, if I had to guess, is the fuel shutoff valve. Oil pressure, amp meter, gasoline gauge, horn, Packard data plate, Waltham clock, speedometer, and odometer with tripometer inside of it. This is to retard the spark. This is all the way closed. Up above, there are no sun visors. There is a rear view mirror here. It's circular. Just look at all the ribbing in the top here. In the back, it's all nice. It's utilitarian here. It's nice up. It's nice back there. But there is an armrest here, which is very interesting. There's also an armrest over here, and the windows do go up and down with these straps because they didn't have cranks. This is an intercom system, so the people in the back can talk to you, but you can't talk back. This is all wood. Notice there's this straight panel there, and then you have the rear door, which has a totally different material on the door panel itself. It does not have armrests on the door or panel itself. This is the door handle to pull the door shut. This is the handle, door handle to get out. Window crank for the window. Just take a look at this interior real quick. Look at its carpet. It has a jump seat that swivels into place. They could also swivel back like that. This car has a heated floor, which is super cool. Footrest as well. There are pockets back here that you can store various things in. Armrest. This looks like all real wood. Just look how big that window is. There are lights and curtains, and there's a privacy shade as well as window that partitions between you and the driver, which is super cool. Over here there's storage. So these open. So these are little storage cubbies. Flower vase holder on both sides. This one has lights, 2 lights, one on each side. Let's talk about the seat profile. Very comfortable back here. Super comfortable. It's not, this seat is a bit upright, but this feels like just sitting on a couch, really. And there's tons of space. Like, here's my elbow to the partition wall. I can't touch it. I can even put my feet all the way out and not work. Put my feet all the way out and come nowhere near touching that. Here's what the front looks like from the back. Let's take a quick gander at the greenhouse, or the pillar to glass ratio. It's very airy in this car. I don't know if you can tell in the video, but the windows are huge. Privacy shade there. This is what visibility looks like out the rear from the back seat. It does not have a parcel shelf, but look at all this textured. Just check out this engine. Got priming cups here. Starter, water pump, generator. Notice 2 distributors. These blocks don't sit. If you look at this engine just right, you'll notice that this side is just a hair longer than that side because they just took 2 6-cylinder blocks and put them together. So this engine runs, it's like 2 6-cylinder engines in one. Look at all the electrical stuff. So smooth and quiet. You can't tell it's running from back there. Yeah.
to 3 gallons of oil this thing takes.
Oh, wow.
It's just a massive displacement in the crankcase.
How often do you have to change the oil?
I change it on a regular basis because I like to keep the lead in there and keep everything.
So do you have to get a special kind of oil to put in this thing?
You know, you can buy, they make a special oil for it that's got a lot of zinc in it, but the way I drive my cars and how I drive them, I use Rotella 10W30 heavy duty diesel oil because that has got a lot of zinc in it too.
Nice.
Just seems to work out the best.
On the positive side, it's a Packard. This is the smoothest running engine I have ever witnessed. Whisper quiet, spacious, both front and definitely in the rear. This car is tall, so the greenhouse is second to none, except for maybe in an early Baker Electric. It's a big car, but it isn't huge as in footprint wise. It's tall. The hood region isn't long. Against it, high running cost, expensive then, still expensive now. After driving, you have to be mindful of the heat register in the floor. If you place your hand on it, you might get burned. All right, now it's time for Would You Rather. 2 scenarios today. In the first scenario, would you rather have a 1917 Peerless Limo or 1917 Packard Imperial Limo or 1917 Pierce Arrow Limo? I'm going to leave this here for a minute. If you need more time, feel free to pause the video. Moving on to the second scenario. Would you rather have a 1917 Locomobile or a 1917 Packard or 1917 Crane Simplex? Going to leave this here for a minute. Need more time, feel free, pause the video. Now it's time for Name That Tune. First person to get both the name of the band and the song title correctly in the comment section will have their comment pinned to the top of it. Thank you all so much for coming out and watching this. If you'd like to get in touch with me, shoot me a comment in the comment section below or check out our Facebook group I called The After Party. It gives you the opportunity to share your rides, stories, experiences on there. And I wish YouTube would get to a point where we could share pictures on here. I think that would be really cool. If you don't have Facebook and would still like to reach me, send me an email. All of it will be linked in the description below. Just know I really do appreciate everything from you guys. I really do. Thank you all so much. And until next time, toodaloo!